Throughout life, we struggle about making moral decisions. There are the oughts and the ought-nots of life. Much of life deals with the internal struggle about making the right, the good, the true decisions. Hi, Alex McFarland here this morning, and I'm so glad you're watching because for a moment I want to talk about morality and the moral religious basis of American government. I love the subject of our nation's history, and America really is unique. In one of my books, I write about what is called American exceptionalism. And now and then people will say to me, wait a minute, do you mean exceptional in that we're more deserving of this or that, or we're better? I'm not saying that, but I am saying that America, in terms of history and governments and nations, America is different. And part of what makes us different is the moral basis of the country. Now, I want to give at least two things that make America unique, and I want to get across the point that we're in grave danger as a country if we lose one or more of these things. Now, Thomas Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, he says these words. He says that governments derive their powers from the consent of the governed. Now, the idea that the government would rule with the permission of the people, that was an amazing idea. In a world that had seen the rise and fall of kings and nations and feudal systems and even despots, the idea that the populace would give their consent to be governed, that was a radical idea. But also the idea that the government would be formed around some objective absolutes, not anybody's subjective ideas or some king's preference about how he would be dictating the boundaries of the culture, but the idea that there was a body of moral truth known to all people, and the government would be carried out in light of that. That was amazing. Now, February 15 of 1950, then President Harry Truman, a Democrat, he was giving a speech at the Attorney General's conference, and he said this, that the fundamental basis of our laws and government comes from Moses, Isaiah, Matthew, and Paul. Now, what did President Truman mean by that? Well, I want to give you a little backstory of this because I believe President Truman was right in 1950. When he said Moses, he's talking about the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue of Exodus 20. When he said Isaiah, he's referring to something that James Madison, our fourth president, said at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, and I'm going to come back to that. But when he referenced the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5 through 7, Jesus talking about blessed are the peacemakers, loving your neighbor, living morally, forgiving those that have hurt you. And when he talked about Paul, Truman was referencing Romans chapter 13 that says good civil government is actually a ministry of God. Now, let me go with you to the Constitutional Convention of 1787, and I want to quote James Madison, our fourth president, because James Madison at the Constitutional Convention, he said, this is amazing, folks. He quotes Isaiah 33:22 that says, God is our lawgiver, our judge, our king. Now, the three branches of government, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branches really come from Isaiah 33:22. And Madison proposed this, and it was embraced. And we have this amazing, unique thing called the U.S. Constitution that presupposes you have rights, not government-granted rights, but God-given rights. That's why Jefferson called them inalienable. In other words, they can't be taken away. Now, your rights can be taken away, but not legitimately. Not legitimately can your rights be taken away. And everybody from JFK to Bill Clinton to all of our great leaders have known this. And when they formed our Constitution, they were really doing it in light of universally, historically recognized moral absolutes, but even specifically biblically ordained power structures and parameters. That's why John Quincy Adams, our sixth president, said that the highest glory of the American Revolution was that it united the principles of good civil government with the principles of God's Word. Now, Larry Schweikert, a professor of history in Ohio, said this. I want to read a quote He said, so many left-wing historians fail to understand what every colonial settler and every Western pioneer understood. Character was tied to liberty and liberty to prosperity. And the surest way to ensure the presence of good character was to keep God at the center of one's life and community and ultimately the nation. Separation of church and state meant freedom to worship, not freedom from worship. Let me say this as we wrap up this thought. Nowadays, the non-establishment clause of the First Amendment, that the government will make no law regarding the establishment of religion, many construe that to mean abolition of morality. Now, if you want to be Christian or non-Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or secular, you can do that. You can believe what you want to believe. But what we really can't let anyone do, or shouldn't let anyone legitimately do, is to tear down the backdrop that gives us the freedom to safely, prosperously walk around as a believer, non-believer, whomever, whatever. So the moral foundation of our nation is key to the liberties that we've enjoyed now for 242 years. The government will not establish a religion, but that does not mean the ignoring or the abolition of morality. In fact, the moral basis of our government, not only is it unique, but it's been the secret of our greatness, our prosperity, and your liberties. Hey, thanks for watching. Think about these things. Alex McFarland, like us on social media, Truth for New Generation. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, but we're very grateful that you're on watching. Hey, God bless you, God bless our nation, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on the live webcast.